Welcome to the last session on the conditions required for processing information in the new Protection of Personal Information Act. This session will include two of the most important pillars in the Act. 1. Security safeguards and 2. Data subject participation. Let's get started. Security safeguards. Personal information must be kept secure against the risk of loss, unlawful access, interference, modification, unauthorized destruction and disclosure. What procedure do you have in place to identify any foreseeable internal and external risks to personal information? A safety and security risk assessment is required to identify the risks and ensure they are being seen to effectively. What processes do you have in place to prevent personal information from falling into unauthorized hands? Strict adherence to safety and security policies must be enforced. This procedure will be covered in the POPIA Policies and Procedures Manual. What procedure do you have in place to establish and maintain appropriate safeguards against the identified risks? The responsible person must enforce strict policies and procedures to safeguard personal information in your possession. How do you determine which employees are permitted access personal information and what information they are permitted to access? Strict policies and procedures are required regarding who has access, and how they gain access, to the personal information in your possession. What processes do you have in place to alert you when personal information is accessed or modified without authorization? This procedure will be covered in the POPIA Policies and Procedures Manual. A mapped-out process is required. What process do you have in place to ensure that safeguards are continually updated in response to new risks or deficiencies in previously implemented safeguards? This procedure will be covered in the POPIA Policies and Procedures Manual. It is the duty of the responsible person to ensure this process is followed. What processes do you have in place to prevent the reoccurrence of a data breach? It is the duty of the responsible person to ensure this process is followed. What procedure is to be followed when sharing personal information with an external operator? A responsible party must, in terms of a written contract between the responsible party and the operator, ensure that the operator establishes and maintains the required security measures. The operator must advise immediately if there is a possibility that personal data has been accessed or acquired by any unauthorized person. What procedure is in place to inform the data subject that their personal information has been compromised? The data subject must be advised via email or in writing immediately if it is suspected that their personal information has been accessed by unauthorized persons. Sufficient information must be provided to allow the data subject to put measures in place to safeguard themselves against potential consequences of the security compromise. What procedure is in place to inform the information regulator of any security breach? The information regulator must be informed in the event of a security breach where personal information could be compromised. It is the duty of the responsible person to ensure this process is followed. 2. Data subject participation. Data subjects may request whether their personal information is held, as well as the correction and/or deletion of any personal information held about them. What are the data subject's rights regarding access to information being held by you? Data subjects may request information from you on whether you are holding their personal information. This request may not be declined and may not be charged for. The full nature and details of the information being held must also be provided on request, but a charge may be levied for this information. What processes do you have in place to ensure such a request from a data subject is adhered to? It is the duty of the responsible person to ensure this process is followed. What processes do you have in place to allow data subjects to correct personal information that you hold or withdraw consent to use such information? The data subject has the right to correct the personal information that you hold. They also have the right to withdraw consent at any time. This procedure will also be covered in the POPIA Policies and Procedures Manual. Thanks for listening to Session 5. You have now completed the 8 conditions required for data processing under the Protection of Personal Information Act. Please review the training in the link below this video.